tell a story or two of a project where you said you ran into a maintainer that didn't seem to be receptive to taking things in? Do you have an example of a challenge like that?
It's not a challenge because if someone joins the community, so it means that he wants to get contributions and he's open to the idea of the community. But many times after a month or two, so you understand, okay, it doesn't work. And I tell it to anyone that adds a project to the community that if it doesn't work, so we automatically move it to the archive and we stop sharing it. And it happens all the time because I don't like it, but most of the projects that we have are volunteering project. We have one project that was from Checkmark's company, but they stopped it. So for now, we have mostly volunteering projects of private people, and I hope that we will find companies that like the idea to open their already open source projects, or maybe to open such projects. So we will have projects that are more with more resources and more big and all that. It's funny that eventually I found out that the basic React library that I told you of the Monday company, it's open source, but it's not open to contributions. So I'm happy that they gave us the idea, but eventually we didn't manage to collaborate with them. Yeah, and this is also something I learned, that there is a big difference between open source code that, okay, you can see all the code in GitHub or anywhere you want. And this is one thing that the code is open, and the other thing that it's open to contribution. It's I think most of the open source code isn't really open to contribution. It's mostly just open code. Maybe if you will find a very specific bug and you will say to the maintainer, I have a specific way to fix it and it's good, so we'll take it. But if you will offer a new feature or try to be really connected to the project, so most of the project, I don't think they are open to that.
It depends. I would say that there's a pretty big spectrum.
Yeah, of
You
course. Yeah.
meaning that there are certainly projects that fundamentally don't want contribution. They're just out there dropping code and that's all they're doing. There are other projects where the maintainers want something to be done in a very specific way. So your forced attempt at making that contribution might not be taken. And depending on the type of response that the maintainer gives you, you may give up or you may try a different path. And this is where, being a maintainer that is helpful with those that are trying to contribute, it's a big, that's part of that spectrum, right? But
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my experience, it's often the case that the first time you try to bring a feature, particularly if you haven't been around the project for its entire existence, something similar might have been tried and it failed, or there are others that don't really like that kind of feature, so you'd have to do it in a different way. So there's a lot of negotiation and compromise.
Yeah.
And it's easy to, again, depending on the way that's phrased to you from the maintainer, you may just give up and say, well, they don't want it. Or it may be the case that, there's another path to get that functionality in, just maybe not quite the way that you originally expected it. And so, like I said, it's somewhat of a spectrum. Have
Yeah.
you had cases like that where you've had to start and then maybe redirect and go a different way to get something in, or has that not
I
really
think
occurred
in our
much?
community, the problem is more basic, but also different between projects, that how much it's hard to get into the project. And because our community members are volunteering, they're not, I think a lot of open source contributions are coming from users of the software, that they are programmers and they can add code to a program that they are using. So it's a win-win situation for them. But in our community, it's just the concept of, okay, I like to write code, and now I'm looking for my next job, so I have time, and I want to find a project that I can be part of. If the project onboarding is too much tough and hard to start, so it's not very relevant to our community. So most of the projects are not very big, and it's kind of the next phase and the next challenge for our community, that we will have deeper and more meaningful contributions for a long time, and it's challenging. And about this thing, we are looking for the way to do it, and that people will be connected to a project for long periods and not just come and go.